Hello, awesome scholars. We're going to continue discussing the human heart. While I was away and you were in class, you actually completed a diagram of the heart where you used the blue and red color pencils to label the parts, and we kind of talked about the blood flow and the parts of the heart. Well, I want to at least provide you with a formal PowerPoint that listed the parts of the heart, the functions of the heart, and review blood flow once again. So, the heart is part of the cardiovascular system. Now, the word cardio means heart and vascular means vessel. So cardiovascular, heart, vessel. Now, the goals of the cardiovascular system are to oxygenate blood. And remember, as we have been discussing over and over and over and over again, that oxygen is needed so that we can make ATP, which is our energy source. We also need the cardiovascular system to remove waste from the blood. And when I say waste, I'm talking about carbon dioxide and water, because these two things must leave the system. Now, the water is not so bad, but the carbon dioxide is what we actually needs to be removed from our system. And so the cardiovascular system, which is basically carrying blood, helps to remove the carbon dioxide from our tissues so that we can remain as highly oxygenated as possible. Now, there are three basic components to the cardiovascular system, that being the heart itself, the lungs, which we will talk about in a little bit, and of course the vessels, which of course, remember the word vessels and vascular are the same. Now, the human heart, as we talked about, has four chambers. There are two upper atria. Remember, atria is plural for atrium. And then there are two lower ventricles. The heart beats approximately 100,000 times a day, and it's actually about the size of two of your hands clasped together. So if you actually take your two hands and put them together, clasp them together as if they're hugging each other, that's the approximate size of your heart. Now, the heart has a mass of approximately one soda can, and I'm talking about a filled soda can, and it pumps approximately 1.5 gallons of blood a minute. So that's a pretty good bit of blood that's flowing through our bodies every single minute. So now let's just briefly review the parts of the heart here on the diagram. You have already done this on your blank diagram. We watched the video while I was away, but I just want to kind of just go through this one more time. So remember, the heart can be divided into right and left halves. And remember, when looking at the heart, you look at it from the perspective of looking directly at the person in front of you. So with that being said, this would be the right side, remember, and then this would be the left side. Now, of course, if I actually had my color pencils, this side here would be blue, and then this side here would be red. And we'll discuss that in just a second, just as a recap. All right? Also, if I go across here, this actually divides the heart into upper and lower halves. So let's kind of dig in for just a moment. Remember, this is the right atrium. This is the left atrium. Right here is the right ventricle. And this is the left ventricle. Just make sure you got that. Right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. Remember, this vessel here is the superior vena cava. This is the inferior vena cava. This right here is the aorta. Pen's not want to work here. All right, and that's the aorta, which carries blood from the heart to the body tissues. You notice that the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava, as well as the pulmonary right here veins, are blue, and the aorta and the pulmonary arteries are red. Remember, veins carry deoxygenated blood, hence the blue color, and arteries carry oxygenated blood, hence the red color. And also, as we see here, here's a valve here, here's a valve right here, here's another valve over here. Remember, the purpose of the valves is to prevent backflow of blood. Remember, blood needs to go only one way through the heart. So the valves open. As soon as the blood leaves one chamber, goes to the next chamber, it closes immediately. So again, valves help to prevent the backflow of the blood. Alrighty. Again, if you want to go through all the different blood flow of the heart in detail, make sure that you watch the video where I actually talked about this and you actually have your diagram. So just to recap, blood enters the heart at the right atrium. Blood then moves from the right atrium to the right ventricle. Blood then exits the heart and goes to the lungs. Blood returns to the heart at the left atrium. Blood moves from the left atrium to the left ventricle, and then it leaves the heart and goes to the rest of the body. Now, in terms of the blood vessels, the tubes that the blood flow through, there are three types: veins, arteries, and capillaries. We notice that the veins, as I mentioned, move blood toward the heart. So when I told you, veins take blood to the heart. And for all intents and purposes, the blood that goes to the heart is unoxygenated. However, there is one exception. The pulmonary vein that brings the blood from the lungs to the heart is the only vein in the body that carries oxygenated blood. Let me repeat that. Veins carry unoxygenated blood with the exception of the pulmonary vein, because when the blood comes from the lungs back to the heart by way of the vein, the pulmonary vein that is, it is now oxygenated, because remember I discussed with you in the other video that I created that gas exchange occurs in the lungs. Now the veins contain valves, because remember, you want to prevent backflow. They are larger and they tend to have less pressure. Arteries, on the other hand, move blood away from the heart and they carry oxygenated blood. But guess what? There is one exception, and that is the pulmonary artery. Because when the pulmonary artery takes the blood from the heart and sends it to the lungs to actually clean it up, if you will, that's when the blood is deoxygenated. So again, all arteries carry oxygenated blood with the exception of the pulmonary artery, because that artery that carries the blood from the heart to the lungs is low in oxygen. Now, arteries basically have no valves. Because of gravity, there's really no backflow associated in arteries. They tend to be smaller and they actually have more pressure. And then the final blood vessel type is the capillaries, which we find in all of our body tissues. Now they are really small, and these are the sites of where gas exchange occurs. When I say gas exchange, I'm talking about the exchange of the carbon dioxide in blood for oxygen. So within the capillaries, in the various body tissues, this is where you see oxygen being replaced carbon dioxide rather being replaced with oxygen. So again, capillaries exchanging carbon dioxide for oxygen. Now here on this diagram here we see this vessel here is a vein, and this vessel here is an artery. And down here is a small capillary. So here's the vein, artery, and my nice capillary. If you notice, the thickness of muscle in the artery is much bigger than it is in the vein, which we expect, because remember, arteries are carrying blood to the body tissues, and therefore they need to have thicker muscular walls to accomplish this. And this diagram here just kind of goes over blood flow through the body. It kind of gives you a gross simplification of how blood flows through the body from the heart to the different tissues. As you see here, nice capillaries here, capillaries down here. This, of course, is the heart right here in the middle, and it's just showing the blood flow throughout the heart. Now, I've already mentioned this, but just to recap, the vena cava is the largest vein of the body. It brings blood to the right atrium. And remember, we talked about there being inferior and superior parts of it. So when we talk about them collectively, we say inferior and superior vena cava. Remember, the superior is the one above the heart. The inferior is the one below the heart. And we also have pulmonary arteries, which bring unoxygenated blood to the lungs, and pulmonary veins, which bring oxygenated blood back to the heart. Remember, these are our two exceptions, so don't forget that. And then, of course, the aorta is the largest artery in the body, and it takes oxygenated blood to the body tissues. And then there's an ascending and descending part. Remember, on the heart, the aorta looked like this right here. So if this was, let's say, the heart down here, this would be the aorta right here. And remember those three branches that came off of it when you looked at it? So this is the ascending portion here, this is the descending portion here, and these three branches right here are going to the head and neck region. Now, this diagram here was intentionally left blank. What you should do is kind of see if you can recreate the drawing that we did together in my video that you actually did with me with the blue and red color pencils, to see how well you can label the parts of the heart and diagram blood flow through the heart. So that's my challenge for you. Well, guess what? You have your homework. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, or we can meet during Flex or tutorial, or just feel free to ask me a question in class. Have a good one.